After releasing the best budget fanless mini PC I've tested so far, MINIX is back again. This time with a Z100-Aero, which as the name suggests, throws a fan into the mix. And I can say right now that this mini PC is really good. However, there's a lot of fierce competition at this end of the market, and there are a few things the Aero could do better. So what's holding it back from taking the top budget mini PC spot? We'll get into it right after this message. Have you lost a product key on your PC? EaseUS Key Finder can recover and back up all product keys on your system. With this app, you can display product keys of Windows, Office, Adobe products, and more. You can also find Wi-Fi codes, browser accounts, and passwords. Try it for free with a link in the video description. MINIX's Z100-Aero is made of good quality plastic and has a solid feel. A simple design with a brush metal style top cover looks nice, and if you like your minis with hard edges over round ones, then this one will get your engine roaring. And just for the record, I like my round ones. Anyway, what you get in the box is similar to the fanless Z100. The Aero includes screws and rails for 2.5-inch storage expansion, HDMI cord, monitor mount, power supply, and manual. Not pictured are the region power adapters which you slot into the power supply. Port selection is impressive and takes the N100 as far as it can go. The front has a BIOS reset button, power button, audio jack, and 3 USB 3 5GB ports, one of which is a full-featured USB-C and supports power delivery and display up to 4K 60. I did test it and have to say it's definitely more convenient and cleaner when these power delivery ports are located on the back. Speaking of, there are 2 USB 3 5GB there, along with HDMI and DisplayPort, allowing for another 2 4K 60 displays. For networking, there's Realtek Gigabit and 2.5GB LAN. An Intel AC 9560 chip handles Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of competition in the N100 mini PC space, and the MINIX comes in at around $237 for the 512GB storage, 16GB RAM combo on Amazon. That's on the upper end of the N100 scale, but it depends on the features you need. The Beelink EQ12 has a similar feature set and is around the same price. Opening up the Aero is something that can be improved. The screws are hidden by glued on rubber feet, which I've never been a fan of. Also, once you remove the screws and lift the lid, you still don't have access to the memory and storage. That requires a bit of wrestling with the board. I managed to finally get it out by pulling on the back of the case to give a bit more slack, and then wiggling the board out. On the other side of the board is the M.2 NVMe drive, DDR4 3200 memory, SATA expansion cable, CMOS battery, and M.2 Wi-Fi card. Since the fan is on the undercarriage of this mini, I think a removable top lid would be the better option, even if it sacrifices some of the aesthetics. I'm happy to report that MINIX doesn't mess with the Windows 11 Pro installation. Nice to see a clean install for once. But that does mean Microsoft's forced sign-in prompt comes up when setting up the Mini. To get past it, press Shift and F10 on the keyboard to bring up the command box. Click into it and type OOBE/bypass NRO. Press Enter. The Mini will restart and allow you to skip the internet option, so you don't need to sign in or create a Microsoft account. I do test Ubuntu off a USB drive with each mini PC, and this one, just like all the N100 minis before it, worked fine. Something made clear to me while running through the benchmarks is that the Aero runs the N100 at full speed. No BIOS tweaks necessary, which isn't as common as it should be. The difference between the N100 minis in single core and multi-core isn't even worth going over. And a similar deal with video encoding. One area where some differences can start to show up is in the graphics benchmark. The Aero uses DDR4 memory while the top units use DDR5. There's a few percent gain for the minis that go with DDR5 in the DX11 and DX12 benchmark, but it's more noticeable in actual game tests. Still, single-digit gains aren't huge, but would have been good to see on this mini. Intel's N100 has limited PCIe lanes to go around, so all the fancy ports mean there have to be cuts elsewhere, and in this case, it's the included NVMe drive, which is limited to PCIe Gen 3 X1 speeds, or around double SATA. Recently I had a request to test Minecraft on an N100, and I remembered I bought it a couple of years ago for benchmarking and forgot about it. The good news is I managed to recover the account, so here it is. The Bedrock version runs close to a stable 30 FPS if you reduce the anti-aliasing in the video settings. The Java version runs at a much higher frame rate, but has bad traversal stutters unless you reduce the render and simulation distance. Overall, I'd say Minecraft runs well enough for most. You'll just need to lower the settings. If you want to dip your toes into some esports gaming, Valorant is playable on the N100 at 1080p. And you can crank up the detail to max on League of Legends while still having an above 60 FPS frame rate. A 10-year-old AAA game like GTA 5 is playable at 720p, so clearly the N100 is not a gaming powerhouse. Those looking to turn an N100 into an emulation box need to know the limit is PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Wii at 720p for most games. Some of the tougher to emulate titles will need to drop to 480p. The N100 does have excellent video decoding capabilities. I've tested 4K 60 YouTube videos and no frames were dropped. Basic 1080p video editing is possible as well. My project works reasonably okay, even with the CPU getting hammered. Intel's hardware video decoding stops Playback from becoming a chugfest. In the BIOS, you'll find that most options are hidden. The ones most are looking for can be found in the boot tab and then OEM configuration. Auto power on, Wake on LAN, and RTC Wake are all here. MINIX Z100-Aero is one of the lowest at idle power draw, and for the maximum, it falls around in the middle. I'm impressed by its cooler. Not only is the CPU temperature low, but fan noises as well, even under load. I was worried about the lack of cooling on the NVMe drive, but 56C Max is okay. When I think about it more, it's only running at X1 speed, so the drive isn't being pushed very hard, at all. In fact, it's only a quarter of its full potential. So the MINIX Z100-Aero has full N100 performance without any BIOS tweaks. Cooling is very good and fan noise is low. The port selection is impressive and includes a full function USB-C port with power delivery and display. Windows hasn't been modified, as far as I can tell. However, opening the Mini to get to the memory and storage is more difficult than it should be. DDR4 is included instead of DDR5, which loses a few percent in graphics performance, and unlike the MINIX's fanless mini PC, this one is made of plastic instead of metal, which would all be fine if the price was lower. But given the higher price tag, I would have liked to see some more premium features, including a better Wi-Fi chip. So there we have it, the MINIX Z100-Aero, a quiet and cool N100 mini PC with full performance. Find it linked in the video description if you're interested, and also check out my review on the fanless N100 mini PC from MINIX, which is a real banger. Cheers!